Every software project starts with a grand vision, but somewhere between outlining that business intent and actually writing the code, the structural logic often collapses. Traditional management tools like Jira or DevOps pipelines are built to track sprints and monitor code drops. They are not designed to validate whether the architecture actually makes sense before the work begins. ALManac operates as a strict gatekeeper for this pre-delivery phase. It traces the logic of requirements and checks their coherence before a developer ever touches a keyboard. By acting as a structural quality gate, the system ensures that flaws are caught and fixed before they can infect the downstream delivery pipeline. ALManac was built to enforce enterprise order, but its own origin was a structurally chaotic prototype. In early 2026, the entire application was driven by a single file called app.js, 45,000 lines of code stacked in one place. Nearly 7,000 raw database calls pierced directly into this file, where any small change threatened failure across the system. The engineers had to solve a compounding structural crisis without ever taking the system offline. When facing this level of technical debt, the common industry instinct is to halt all progress and spend years building a version 2.0 from scratch. ALManac's creators opted for a different path, a relentlessly tracked, continuous architecture improvement plan. They addressed the debt in strict, incremental phases while maintaining their daily feature schedule. They began by building the runtime spine, isolating foundational tasks into dedicated modules. Features were systematically peeled off the monolith and routed to this new spine, stabilizing the core without breaking the live environment. Structural integrity is built through the ruthless discipline of continuous surgical migration. As the codebase stabilized, the product's internal philosophy evolved to match the new architecture. They established a zero support manifesto. Screens must explain what they are, what can be done here, and what happens next. If a user needed a manual or an expert to understand the interface, the design was considered a bug. This was followed by a strict boundary control model, dividing the system into 3 layers: a private core for data, a guided middle layer for controlled actions, and a public layer that only exposes validated contracts. To test these rules, the developers created the Self Project. They used ALManac to govern its own historical requirements and capabilities, forcing the tool to manage its own evolution. The system proved its robustness by successfully enforcing its rules on its own creators. Today, ALManac is a stable hybrid platform. The monolith is gone, replaced by deterministic AI guardrails and robust back-end pipelines. However, the creators met this technical achievement with a very different reality in the boardroom. In their official market readiness review, the board was direct. While product maturity had increased, the commercial risk remained unchanged. The creators refused to project revenue or inflate valuations based on potential. Without proven commercial adoption, they anchored the system's worth strictly to its replacement cost. This reveals a difficult ceiling. Flawless internal governance and clean code do not automatically grant market success. The legacy here is one of disciplined reality, where software maturity is evidenced by the dedication to fixing a foundation while the engine is still running.